guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm testing out a really exciting foundation. This is the L'Oreal Age Perfect Anti-Aging Radiant Foundation. So L'Oreal does some of, if not the best drugstore foundations, the True Match, the Pro Matte, all those like really big YouTube hyped drugstore foundations. So many of them are from L'Oreal. So I had really high hopes when I saw this on the Boots website. I don't know if it's out in the US yet. I'd love you to tell me if you've seen it. This was not in my local Boots. I saw it online and I went straight to the store and could not get this range at all. I had to order it online. This cost me $12.99 and Boots is currently doing a 3 for 2 on this range. So if you want to see the other products I picked up, I'll be doing a review on the BB cream, the concealer and the blush that are all from this Age Perfect line on my next video or in the next week or so. So I picked up the shade Golden Vanilla, which I think is maybe a shade too light for me right now, but we're going into winter. I wanted something that was going to last me over the next few months, and I'm pretty happy with this shade. I would say it's, you know, around an NC30. It's pretty close to NARS's Punjab, and it's not a million miles away from Estee Lauder's Tawny. So if you are in those sort of shades, this would be a fairly decent match for you. It is supposed to be medium to full coverage. It's supposed to have a radiant finish, and it contains Pro-Xylane. I hope that's in the ballpark of how you pronounce that, which is a skincare ingredient that they feature in their Laser Renew line, and it's supposed to be smoothing, plumping on the skin, and this whole line is aimed at like mature skin, so it's supposed to be very radiant, very plumping, very smoothing. It's not supposed to sink or soak into fine lines and wrinkles, and it's supposed to blur imperfection. So it is aimed at like mature skin, which I would say is probably, you know, from mid 40s onwards. I am 33, but I do have the initial signs of aging. I do have fine lines, I do have texture, and my skin is not as radiant and luminous as it was when I was 20. So I think I'll be able to give this a decent go. There doesn't seem to be a claim as far as longevity. It doesn't necessarily say it's long wearing, so I guess we will have to see how we get on. So without further, why did I go so Devonshire then? Without further ado, let's get it on my face. So as always, I have primed my skin with the Stila One Step Corrector, just because that is like a standard primer. It's not going to interfere with the finish. It's not going to do anything crazy. So yeah, give it a good shake, and I guess we'll start with one pump and we'll see. Let's put a bit more on the tray. We'll see how we get on. It looks quite thick. It's not really moving. It's not moving. It's not moving. It does have a smell, quite a pleasant smell. It smells like a bit like that sunscreeny smell that lots of foundations smell of. So I'm going to start on this side with my brush, and this is the Sigma F80. I'm just going to start with a fairly small amount and see how we get on. Oh, it feels very light and hydrating, which is a good sign. It does look nice and luminous. I am a bit worried about this shade because it looked fine when I swatched it, but then it did seem to have either oxidized or just dried down quite a bit deeper. When I swatched it in comparison with other foundations I had, dried down, it was quite close to like Estee Lauder's Tawny or NARS's Punjab. Those were kind of the two closest shade matches that I had in my collection for reference. But yeah, it started off, when I first watched it, I was like, oh God, it's so light. But then by the time it had dried down, it was absolutely fine. So I'd say this is like, you know, I usually go for matching my body, and this is like much more a match to my face. Like you can see how close in shade it is to this side of my face, was usually, because my body is a lot darker, I usually match my body, but now we're moving into winter, those two areas will very soon be the same shade, so no harm, no foul. It's really giving me a lot of brush strokes, so I think this is going to be better with a sponge, and I've used that whole amount that I thought was going to do my whole face, so it isn't a little goes a long way kind of scenario. I would still say we're on a pretty light to medium coverage right now, so you're going to need a fair amount to get this, you know, to be a good medium. Yeah, there's still some brush strokes, there's still some redness poking through, but I'm going to move on and try the sponge side rather than be here all day, you know, see if that goes a bit better. So using my beauty blender, and let's see if this gives us any difference. Hopefully this might blend in a bit easier and a bit quicker. It's definitely quicker on this side with the beauty blender. I'd like to say that that coverage is built up quicker as well, and obviously I'm not having the brush strokes problem, so that's the bonus. Okay, so again, I've used that like whole amount pretty much, which was like a pump and a half for each side of my face. So that is quite a lot of product. That's going to be like approaching like 4 pumps to do your whole face. So I definitely prefer the sponge side. I feel like I was getting lots of brush strokes on the side with the brush. So I would definitely recommend using a beauty sponge for a nicer finish. It's still, you can see a little bit of my redness here coming through and a little bit of discoloration here. You can see my beauty marks like fairly clearly, so at best this is going to be like a medium-ish, even though I used nearly 4 pumps. I do like the smell. That is kind of lingering around. It is a sort of quite subtle, like I said, sunscreen type of smell. I'm quite enjoying that, but if you're sensitive to smells or you just hate smells, then probably steer away from this one. It's definitely sinking pretty dramatically into my smile lines, which, given they specifically claimed that it wasn't going to do that, that's slightly irritating. It's also sinking into the lines on my forehead, so again, that's not ideal given that it does specifically claim it won't do that. Let's finish up my makeup and see how we feel with everything on. Okay, so we are back. I have done the rest of my makeup, and I have to say, I think it looks really, really good. Really good. So other than the initial problems which I spoke about, which is that it has fully soaked into my smile lines and it has kind of smoked? Why can't I talk today? It has kind of soaked also into the fine lines on my forehead. So I don't find it to live up to that claim that it's, you know, doesn't soak in or emphasize wrinkles and fine lines. Is it quite smoothing? Actually, I think it is quite smoothing. It's not really making a much of an impact with my chin, which is my like problem area. I had a bit of an issue with my nose that when I went in to put my highlight on, it kind of rubbed away a little bit, which isn't like, I use the same concealer, my MAC Pro Longwear, that I always do, and that has never happened to me before. So I think it probably is gonna move quite easily. But having said that, I used a cream bronzer today, I've used a cream highlight, and I've used my powder blush, and it hasn't moved underneath that. It worked really nicely. I didn't have any issues with that at all, even though I went in with like my damp beauty blender and my bronzer on top. So I feel like if it was gonna have a problem, that would have caused it a problem. But I think it looks really nice. And again, for a drugstore foundation, it's looking nice. Do I think it's anti-aging? I mean, I guess it's got those anti-aging ingredients in it, which is really good, and over time, that you know will have some effects. But I guess maybe we'll see how it gets on throughout the day, because perhaps we'll see a bit more of a smoothing effect as those ingredients kind of activate. Quite liking the shade. It is like maybe a shade too light against my body, but it's a really good match for my face and my neck. And I guess, you know, we're moving into winter, so I'll certainly get lots of use out of this, you know, over the coming months. It's not gonna, you know, be too dark for me, which a lot of my foundations will be in a month or so, so that's really good. But yeah, I am quite liking it. Let's zoom in and show you the finish. So obviously this is my highlight up here, but it does look, you know, luminous. It does look quite natural. It does look like, oh, where have you gone? It does look like skin. It does look really natural to me. It doesn't look heavy. I definitely don't think it lives up to the claim that it's medium to full, because despite me using quite a lot of product, I'd still say we're at a medium. You know, you can see beauty marks, and before I put all of this jazz on, you could still see some redness. So I definitely think it's a medium. It's not going to be full for me. I've got really high hopes. I'm really hoping this is going to wear well, because that is kind of the deciding factor for me as to whether this is going to be something I reach for that often. For me, it has to last, you know, decently for 8 hours. Otherwise, I'm rarely going to have any use for it. I did take a flash photo before I put any other makeup on my face. To me, that is a particularly dramatic white cast. It's not even a white cast, it's almost a yellow cast. It looks really yellow, but there's definitely some flashback happening in that photo, so it's not going to be suitable for me for evening wear. This is going to be like an everyday, maybe a work foundation, because it is drugstore, so you don't have to be so careful when you use it. So yeah, I'm really hoping that this is going to wear well. So the time when I finished putting this foundation on was midday, so I'm going to give it the usual minimum of 8 hours and come back and see how it has worn before I have my final thoughts. See you in a few. Welcome back, guys. So the time is now 8:15, and what are you thinking? What are you thinking? I have been loving this foundation all day. When my husband got home, because obviously he's never seen this on me, the first time I used it today, he walked in and he obviously sees a lot of different foundations and products on my face, so he's seen it all. He walked in and I was like, babe, what do you think? What do you think of this? And he was like, love it. Like, genuinely, he thought my face looked amazing. So you know, when like your husband notices a different or knows that you've used something different, that is a really good sign. But honestly, I am in love with this foundation. I have not been excited. I don't think I've ever been excited about a drugstore foundation before, but I am really excited about this. So if you remember, I finished kind of doing my foundation at about midday. So we are over the 8 hour mark, and legitimately, there is no fading, not even on my chin, not even on the tip of my nose. Nothing has happened. Everything is still on, in place and perfect. And I have just loved checking this foundation out throughout the day, at how smooth, and yes, it does look youthful. Yes, my skin looks smooth. Yes, my lines and everything look reduced, and I think it's amazing. I am so happy for this. This is 100% my new favorite drugstore foundation. That I can't think of one that would come close to it. I'm so happy with it, so excited for you guys to try it. Please let me know if you have tried it in the comments below and how you got on with it. I can't even tell you a problem I've had, other than it soaking into my smile lines, which every single foundation does. But other than that, there is no fading. Over 8 hours on a drugstore foundation. It's luminous, it's lightweight, it feels like nothing, and my skin looks like a baby's bum. What more can you say? I hope you enjoyed this video or found it useful. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe before you go. Otherwise, I hope to see you again. Take care for now. Bye 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 bye.